Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew Graviss, the Chief Data and AI Officer of the Department of State. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you here today, our dedicated employees, members of the press, and esteemed congressional colleagues. Whether you're here in person or joining us from around the globe, thank you for taking the time to be part of this important discussion on the future of diplomacy in the age of artificial intelligence. In an era of rapid technological evolution, AI stands as a cornerstone of our strategy to enhance diplomatic efforts. AI's potential to analyze vast amounts of data in real time, identify trends, and provide insights is transforming the way we approach global challenges. It empowers our diplomats with the tools they need to navigate complex geopolitical landscapes, foster international cooperation, and advance U.S. interests abroad. At the Department of State, we're committed to harnessing AI's transformative power responsibly and ethically, ensuring it aligns with our values of transparency, accountability, and respect for human rights. By integrating AI into our operations, we aim to not only enhance our diplomatic capabilities, but also inform our efforts to set global standards for its use internationally. Today, we're honored to have with us a visionary leader who has been at the forefront of these efforts. As part of the Department's modernization agenda, we've made significant strides in leveraging technology and innovation to advance our foreign policy objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege to introduce to you the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's 9 a.m. We have a full house. When I was in college, that meant free donuts or something. But actually, I think it's evidence of the more than deep interest, the fascination and enthusiasm for the work that we're doing to integrate technology into the day-in, day-out life of the State Department. And the opportunity this morning to talk about the efforts that we've been making on artificial intelligence. And I have to say, thanks to Matthew, thanks to a remarkable team here, I think what you'll hear in the coming hours shows the work that we've been doing and leading in the federal government to make AI part of our lives. Increasingly, we're seeing across the board technology at the forefront of our diplomacy and our foreign policy. And the revolutions that all of us are experiencing in our daily lives and in our non-work lives, of course, are having a profound impact on our work lives. And they're also at the heart of the strategic competition that we're engaged in, at the heart of strengthening and deepening our alliances and partnerships. We can see extraordinary potential, extraordinary benefit, and we'll talk in a few minutes about how we're actually beginning to realize that. At the same time, we all know, you all are deeply conscious of the challenges, the threats, the danger that technology can pose. We know that for the most part, and we'll see AI may be different, technology is amoral, not immoral. It depends how you use it. But we have to be deeply conscious of that as we move forward. But the possibilities are extraordinary. We had a session at the UN General Assembly last fall, where we brought together technologists and countries around the world to look at how AI could be used to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals, which are, for the most part, stalled. And what's interesting to me is, as I travel around the world, the places where I find the most enthusiasm for artificial intelligence, technology more broadly, actually is in the global majority countries in the developing world, because they see a way of accelerating, getting out of neutral on some of the big objectives that they've set for their societies and that we need to help them realize. But the moment we're in is critical, because in so many ways the choices that we make now will define how technology is used, how it's deployed, and to what effect for a long time into the future. And that's why we have this intense focus on artificial intelligence, other technologies that are going to be shaping that future. We have to make generational investments and generational decisions here at home, including in our technological competitiveness. That's essential to making sure that we remain the standard setters, the rule makers around the world. Working with partners to direct technology to more stable, secure, healthy societies, that's also critical. And it has to animate the diplomacy that so many of you are engaged in. We have the President's leadership on this, including his executive order on AI. We have the International Cyber and Digital Strategy. All of this together, these are foundational elements for the work that we are and have to do. So let me just talk a little bit quickly about the state of state in AI. In 2021, we put forward our modernization agenda. And a big part of that, as you look at it, is making sure that we're working with, using, integrating technology in the work that we're doing. Some of this entails experimentation, some of it entails risk, but if we're not leaning in, we're going to be left out and left behind. Last fall, we released the Enterprise AI Strategy, a roadmap to harness AI's benefits to advance our foreign policy and to strengthen this institution. And as I said, if you look around the federal government, I'm happy to report that this department is leading the way. And indeed, other agencies and departments are looking to the work that we've been doing. Now, I think there are two major reasons why we want to focus on AI and its use here in the department. First, and maybe most fundamentally, freeing up so much of our talent to focus on what's really essential, to focus on the more strategic work, to help ensure that more routine tasks that technology can take on, that's what's happening, and they can spend less time face to screen and more time face to face. We can automate simple, routine tasks. We can summarize and translate research. Something that would take normally days, even weeks, can be done in a matter of seconds. We'll talk about this a little bit later too. Media monitoring. Truly already some extraordinary things that technology we're deploying is helping us to do. All of this you'll have an opportunity to get into in some detail today. Second, I think we can use this technology to actually improve our analysis, to unearth new insights. We've seen already, as we've been testing things out, using AI as a tool for helping negotiations in multilateral organizations, we'll talk about that, using it as a way to combat disinformation, one of the poisons in the international system today. So we'll get into all of this in a little while, but what I've seen already gives me a tremendous sense of excitement about the potential, but also, again, a caution to make sure that we're proceeding wisely, securely, safely, and that we are focused on some of the challenges and risks as well as the opportunities. Ultimately, this is a tool. AI is a tool. And it's only as good and as effective as the people using it. And of course, it's only as good as the inputs that go into it. FSI is integrating AI into its training, including safety, including responsible use. And of course, it's critical that we attract and retain the best possible talent to help us in the integration of technology. So you're already seeing in a number of places missions using AI to support our work, and we're going to celebrate the 2024 Data and AI for Diplomacy awardees today to recognize work that's already been done, hopefully to inspire more work to help each of us actually visualize how this can be a part of the work that we're doing at the department. And I'm also very pleased that we're launching AI.state, a central hub for all things AI at the department. It offers formal and informal training, including already videos that are up there to help folks get started. It's a home for all of our internal State Department AI tools, libraries of prompts and use cases. And I would just say, try it out. I'd encourage everyone to test it out, to try it out, to explore it, to try to learn from it, and also lend your own ideas and input, because this is something that will continue to be iterative and a work in progress. Basically, 3 words to help guide us: just get started. And I think once you do, your imaginations will really take flight, and you'll begin to see more and more how the extraordinary technology that's before us can have a profound impact on the work that we're all doing. In 1860, Upon receiving the first telegraph, the British Prime Minister at the time, Lord Palmerston, reportedly said, "My God, this is the end of diplomacy." Every single technological breakthrough that we've had, whether it was the telegraph, the telephone, radio, the internet, people have been concerned about what it means for their way of doing business, their way of life, their job. And of course, disruptive, transformative technologies can have negative impacts that we have to guard against. But I see this profoundly, AI, other technologies we're deploying, as a way to strengthen what we're doing, to strengthen our diplomacy, to better serve our country, to better serve our people, to better advance our interests in what is an increasingly complex world. And so that's what we really want to talk about today, and start a conversation and continue it through the day and through the days and weeks ahead. So thank you all for being here this morning. Thanks to all those who are listening in. Matthew, why don't we start a conversation?
Yeah, let's dive in. So you talked about the modernization agenda. You talked about the AI strategy that came out last fall. Taking it back a little further, after you were sworn in as the Secretary of State, your first engagement with the workforce, one thing that stuck out to me was your commitment to leaving the organization, the institution, better than when you found it. And we deployed a number of AI technologies over the last few years. Why do you see AI as being critical to advancing our foreign policy objectives?
So I think there are a couple of things that are worth reflecting on, and maybe just to start at 60,000 feet. One of the things that struck me actually last time I was in government during the Obama administration in the work that we're doing was the essential role of technology in helping us to get the right answers. And one of the challenges I think that we have, well, let me just speak for myself, that I have is, of course, I'm not trained in science and technology for the most part, and I suspect that most of us, that's the case. It tends to be that folks who are working foreign policy, working diplomacy, are more trained in other skills. And increasingly, it became evident to me as we were working on these issues, including at the White House as part of the Deputies Committee, that virtually everything we were doing had as at least a part of its answer some kind of technological or scientific solution. And as I've said to some of you, I got to the point where I needed scientists and technologists at the table just to tell me whether I needed scientists and technologists at the table. So we made a big effort, particularly the last few years of that administration, to do just that, to bring in extraordinary experts, but also to help us understand how we could use technology to more effectively advance our work, both in terms of the efficiencies that we needed to have within our departments and agencies, but also to problem solve, to take something like how do you better monitor an arms control agreement? How do you think about dealing with massive flows of refugees and keeping people connected? How do you build genuinely effective food security, health security? How do you think about the role that technology can play in advancing so many of these core missions? Fast forward to where we are now, and fast forward to what I think is change at a genuinely exponential rate. Moore's Law has been blown up, and when you look at AI in particular, it's truly extraordinary. I think two things are really compelling. One is, for me at least, I've been doing this for more than 30 years now. I can't remember a period of time when we had a greater multiplicity of challenges and a greater complexity of challenges and an interconnectedness among those challenges. What I've seen already in the way we're looking at and using AI is an ability to make greater sense more quickly of all of that complexity, to see the interconnections more immediately, and so help us make sense of the world and where we want to take it. Second, Matthew, I think we've talked a lot, and it's also a big focus of the modernization agenda. How do we deal with a time when all of us, all of you, are being asked to do more with less? precisely because there's so much more on our plates. It's more complicated, and yet we're challenged for resources, even though we're fighting for them every single day. If we can have technology like AI that genuinely frees up people's time to make sure that some of these more routine tasks that can be done quickly, and that otherwise, if we were doing them, would take a lot longer, that is an incredible source of freedom and opportunity for the workforce to make sure that it's focused on what really matters and to use the value added that we bring to each task truly to the fore. So we were already seeing through the work that we're doing, including some of the beta testing of our chatbot, the extraordinary savings in time that this can bring. This is just the beginning, and I think the opportunities are extraordinary.
I think about that in the context of operational effectiveness. I'm an engineer, so naturally I think about effectiveness and efficiency. On the effectiveness side, the ability to process just so much more data. Our team across the globe is producing communications, thousands a day, and the ability to synthesize that is paramount given the multiplicity of challenges and complexity of challenges. During the demo, we saw one of our brilliant data scientists talk through the ability to synthesize 30 cables quickly. For all you FSOs that are transitioning this summer, the ability to come up to speed, provided the person who you're replacing left a structured set of data, either in a SharePoint site or anywhere. I mean,
this was incredible. We saw this. I just saw this yesterday. Some of you may have seen this. And just to pick up on what Matthew was saying. So one of the challenges we all face, we're doing transitions at an embassy, and you have someone who's departing, someone who's coming in. The person coming in has to pick up the portfolio, and hopefully in a way that doesn't involve reinventing a wheel that someone spent the past 3 years building. So as Matthew was saying, we saw one small demonstration of this. The outgoing person leaves behind 30, 40, 50 cables worth of work in a particular area. Let's say it's energy. The incoming person trying to make sense of what the host country is looking for in terms of collaboration with us on energy, who the key players are, where we can have the strongest possible relationship, what they hope for from the United States, what they may be looking for from others. All of this is embedded in all of these cables. Now, if you had to go through all of them and try to pick out the critical elements, and you were doing that by reading them, taking notes, then trying to put all these notes together, that's days, maybe weeks worth of work. With one or two prompts that I saw on our desktop computer at my office, in about 5 seconds, that work came together in an incredibly coherent and cohesive way, basically giving the incoming officer all the information that he or she needed about how to approach this problem, what the critical elements were for the host government, who the critical players were and actors were that officers had already engaged. So a small example, and of course this was Matthew, this is like 30 cables worth of work.
Right.
So imagine if it's 100, 200, 500 cables worth of work that someone had produced over a few years. You can just see the incredible efficiency and time that this brings to bear.
I always, on any trip to an embassy, one of the things that I always say is every post has somebody who can play the guitar. You know, it's not in their position description. Somebody can play the guitar, that's for sure. And what we're seeing in the AI space is inevitably, even if it's not in somebody's job jar, somebody can do this AI work. Somebody's leaning in, even if they're not an expert, they're trying it out, they're exploring, they're willing to figure it out. And I think the trick is how do we share that, you know, across the rest of the mission. The other thing that was really enlightening was this is not resident in one section of a post, right? We're seeing this with the diplomatic technology officers. We're seeing this in PD sections, a lot in PD sections.
Well, that's extraordinary. I mean, this is another thing that I've seen, and I know Liz and her team have been working with this. We have one program that we're using that is able to basically ingest 1 million articles every day from around the world. To be able to do that in a couple of hundred countries, in over 100 languages, and then immediately translate, synthesize, and give you a clear picture of what's happening in the information space immediately. Work, again, that would take hours or actually be impossible to do with that many inputs on a daily basis. So this is an incredible tool for our PD officers. Similarly, the ability to take social media platforms and sites and immediately, I think, take all of that in, translate it as necessary into English, and give our PD officers an incredible resource for understanding what's actually happening in the information space in a given place, on a given issue, at a given time.
Super innovative. It's called North Star and was launched a couple of months ago, and so I would encourage everybody to check that out.
And is that something that people actually have access to now?
People have access to it, absolutely. People can go right now and get access.
Great.
Yep, it's a fantastic innovation focused on saving time, and what we're seeing in that, and you'll hear from Undersecretary Allen and others in the panel following this, but the ability to summarize in the media space and then use that time that you save to call the reporter, find out you know, a little more context around why they wrote that article, maybe shape the next article. It's repurposing that time to the higher value asks that we want our experts in diplomacy doing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really the most critical point in many ways. This is one of the things that I know, again, people are understandably and inevitably concerned about is, are we going to be looking at this room in 10 or 15 years and seeing a physical manifestation of a chatbot and no one else? And the answer is we're not. And that's because this technology is not a substitute for us. It's a complement to our work. It's an ability to make us more effective. It's an ability, as Matthew was saying, to really free us up, to focus on the value add that only you, can bring to our work based on unique expertise that you have, based on the contacts, the engagements that you have, based on our basic humanity, which really can't be replaced. So I think if we look at it in that way, you can see the extraordinary benefits to the work that you're doing and the work that you will be doing, not a threat. So this is really critical because, again, I know there's a lot of anxiety whenever we're integrating new technology into our work.
So let's dive into a little bit on that, because we've covered operational effectiveness, operational efficiency, the sky's the limit. It's so exciting. There's also some risks, as you mentioned in your opening. Are there particular risks that you're thinking about, that you're concerned about, that as we deploy this kind of technology we need to be focused on?
So I think there are a few, and again, folks are already very focused on this. One, of course, is just our cybersecurity and making sure that as we integrate technology, including AI, we're also not opening the door to greater risk, particularly when it comes to cybersecurity. So this is something we have to be extraordinarily attentive to. We have extraordinary chief information officer and an entire team that works on this, but we have to make sure that we have a secure environment. And then we also have to be very, very cognizant of some of the potential downsides of technology, including making sure that we're not, in some ways, deep-rooting or accelerating things like bias in what we do and in how we approach issues. This is critical. And I think many discussions out there in thinking about our awareness of all of these challenges as we integrate the technology to make sure that we're mitigating any of the downsides as we maximize the benefits. Those are two that jump out. I know everyone is focused a lot as well on some of the broader threats that the misuse, the maluse of AI could pose, including to our national security, enabling other countries, enabling other groups to weaponize technology in very, very dangerous ways. Of course, we're cognizant of that. But I think if you look at this, as long as we're focused on these potential downsides, as long as we're thinking up front about them and taking the necessary steps to mitigate, the potential benefits far outweigh what we have to be rightly concerned about.
You talk about team sport when it comes to diplomacy all the time internationally, and we can extend that down into this space, team sport in terms of responsible use, mitigating bias. Every employee is going to have a responsibility to ensure that they're using the technology the right way. And we have, as you mentioned, a phenomenal chief information officer, the state chat, which is the name of the chatbot that you mentioned earlier. We got a lot of cybersecurity experts from diplomatic security, from diplomatic technology that are focused on making sure that we're doing that right. We also have a responsible AI team that's focused on that. So it's really important that we recognize both the opportunities and the risks, and that we focus on that. Let's talk about a little bit more about the workforce. So imagine you are new to this game, right? And you're questioning, like, how can it help me? Any advice for the newest person to jump into this space?
Yeah, it comes back to the 3 words I said earlier: just get started. Again, all of us, especially you get to a certain age, you have a lot of trepidation about new technology. Even as you watch your kids have incredible facility with it, there's a natural apprehension. Just get started. Plunge in. The great thing about what you've already designed is the fact that we have available to everyone some pretty basic tools to help you just get started, to give you basic guidance and information on what a good prompt is, and how to use the technology, and then play around with it, experiment with it, try it out. And what I've seen, at least in my own relatively limited experience, but nonetheless, as I've played around with this, and I suspect pretty much everyone in this room, maybe at home, has tried out a large language model, your imagination takes over. And then it becomes something that you just get more and more into. And you're trying to refine the questions you're asking, the inputs that you're putting in, and you start to see right before you the almost instantaneous results. But the most important thing is this: if you just get started, and if you take advantage of the great work that Matthew and his team have done to put together some tools to help you do that, I suspect that people will become extremely enthusiastic about AI and all the potential that it has for the work that we're doing.
Again, team sport. So shout out to Ambassador Palacic and the Foreign Service Institute. I think everybody in the department got an email yesterday on all the training opportunities within the AI space, which is they've really leaned in, and that's exciting. It is about just starting and asking yourself, can AI help with that? I ask that to myself, ask my team to it, who's more advanced in this technology space, but hey, can AI help with that? And if not, okay, keep moving. If it can, hey, there's an opportunity, let's explore. And if I can nerd out for a second, one of the cool things about State Chat is we can actually analyze the prompts that people are putting in, tens of thousands of prompts, so we can understand how the power users are using it, and then we can package that up and message that as training material for the rest of the workforce. So go to ai.state, check out the information. Just start, and you're not alone. Lots of resources to support you.
Yeah, and I think you heard from Matthew 2 critical words: nerd out. Go ahead. Everyone has their inner nerd somewhere, so nerd out on this and see where it takes you.
And so as we wrap up here, I just want to ask you about 5 to 10 years from now. Like, what does a State Department, what does diplomacy look like for us as we have these kind of tools in our pocket?
Look, I think this is where our imaginations really need to carry us, because I think if we were sitting here 10 years ago, so much of what we're doing today, I suspect few people would have actually imagined then. I'm not sure anyone would have seen a decade ago that we would be standing up an entire bureau to deal with cyber and digital policy and emerging technology, that we'd have a new bureau on global health, that we'd be reorganized in the way that we are on climate, or for that matter, on China. So part of this is trying to anticipate where we're going to be, what the critical issues will be, to get ahead of them and to organize ourselves in the most effective way possible to deal with them. But I think as you're looking at technology like AI, what is now something that's just in its infancy, where we're really touching the tip of the potential, the tip of the possibilities, I would see this as being totally, thoroughly, fully integrated into the work that we're doing every day. And we're not even thinking about it or asking ourselves about it. It is almost in the natural flow of work. And just as there was a transition that was made not so very long ago, if you walked around the State Department a few decades ago, well, you'd still see typewriters on desks. And then we got those really big Wang computers that some of us remember fondly that looked like something out of Star Trek. Now all of the technology that we take for granted and assume that was not the case. I think everything that we're just touching and starting to experiment with will be fully part of what we do. But what I hope the impact really is the impact we've been talking about, which is to truly free us up, all of us up, more to focus on what really matters, to use the unique qualities that all of us can bring to these challenges fully to the forefront, and to maximize the time we spend on what's really important, and to minimize the time on things that normally take so much time, but actually divert us from the core of what our work should be and our mission is. That's the potential, and you can already see it. But I think it takes probably someone with a much better imagination than mine to really see where we'll be in 10 years. In fact, Matthew, maybe you have a thought on that, since you're doing this day in, day out.
When you have an 80,000 person workforce, not all the ideas have to come from the stage. And did you see how I skipped out of that one?
Good, really good. Great diplomat too.
So we are seeing the greatest innovation happening in the field. We really are. And the more the field is jumping into this technology and using it, the more we're able to soak that up and then share that with other embassies, other missions across the globe. That's what I'm most excited about. And that's our technology roadmap has had that philosophy, is get it out, make sure it's secure, let people learn, explore, and inevitably the most amazing use cases are going to creep to the top, and then it's our job to make sure in a rapid way that we get that and make it available to the rest of the department.
Yeah, and this is a really powerful thing, because we do have the tremendous benefit of our own scale and reach, and the fact that we have 80,000 people, most of whom are deployed around the world in some 200 countries, and who, as a result of that, may be seeing different angles, different ways of using the technology. That's a pretty rich source of experience, experimentation, data and results to draw from. But it only works if you and your team are working, because what I found, and I suspect many of us have found going around the world for many years, is that inevitably, somewhere, somehow, someone has found the solution, or at least the beginning of the solution to a problem that many people are grappling with. But if that particular solution isn't shared, if it just stays with that one person, that one group, and that one country, or that one place, then you have this reinvention of the wheel that has to go on time and time again. Our ability to draw from the experience that all of our teams are going to have using, deploying, experimenting with AI all around the world, but then bringing it back and having these use cases, as you say, and especially the ones that are producing really interesting new things, come to the top, but then be taken by you, shared across the enterprise. FSI also doing critical work to make sure that folks are up to speed and continue to be brought up to speed throughout their careers. That's how this really works, and that's how it really becomes a powerful force in the life of the department.
AI and analysis without communication helps one person, right? Innovation without communication helps one person. We got to share it. Mr. Secretary, thank you for an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Matt.
And if everybody could stand, we're going to take a quick photo with everybody.
All right, folks. You're right here. Stand by. Thanks.
How are you? Good, thank you. Good. Oh, thanks.
AMG. AMG. That's my tape. I gotta keep that.
It's amazing.
That's me. Thanks. Oh my God.
All right, let's continue the event with our panel discussion on AI achievements and future vision. We'll hear from key leaders driving innovation and modernization at the State Department who've been exploring the potential of AI in our diplomatic efforts. Please welcome our distinguished panel of experts who share their insights and experience with AI integration. I am pleased to introduce Uzra Zaya, the Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights. Elizabeth Allen, the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. Dr. Kelly Fletcher, the State Department's Chief Information Officer. Eric Garcetti, the U.S. Ambassador to India. And finally, our esteemed moderator, Danny Stoying, the Director of the Office of Management Strategy and Solutions. Over to you, Danny.
Thanks. Well, thank you guys for carving time out of your demanding schedules, and especially for sharing your insights and experiences with leading the department in the adoption of AI. So, Dr. Fletcher, if I could start with you. You have a storied career in technology, and you come from an area, the DoD, that has lots of experience with really sophisticated technology. You've seen lots of waves of technology. So is this a fad? Is this AI thing for real, or is it going to go the way of my BlackBerry and the dial-up internet and, like the Secretary said, the telegraph? Is it here to stay?
I think that, so I love this question. First, I would say I love this. Is it a fad? What I would say is we're going to use generative AI today, right? Our allies are using it. Our adversaries are using it. We are behind if we are not using it today. Also, I'm sure that like the interface you're using today, the way the chatbot looks today, that is not how it will look in 5 years. But I'm also really confident that we are going to be using generative AI for our careers, for the duration of our careers. So in the same way that maybe email's gotten easier to use and now we also use chat, I think things will change a little bit, but it's not a fad that you can ride out. You can't wait this one out, you know? I encourage you, just like the Secretary said, to go ahead and just get started.
Thanks. Undersecretary Allen, you've been a vanguard of using AI and encouraging your teams to use AI. So you have lots of experience in hearing people from the field using it. So in all that experience, what you've been hearing, like how do you balance the risks and the rewards and the benefits from using AI?
This is a great question, and thank you, Danny. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everybody, for the partnership across MSS. We've been really grateful in the R family to be working with all of you and to try to lead the department in helping people understand how we can use AI and create a new permission structure. So I'm really excited coming out of today for everyone to see themselves in this work. And to your point, Danny, we have a lot of risks, but we also have a lot of opportunity. And in the information space, particularly as we think about social media and disinformation, the conversation around AI often focuses on deepfakes and inauthentic content and the national security risks of such disinformation and inauthentic content. And those risks are very real, and we know that. And it's why we are focused on that. The Global Engagement Center and the R family is leading an interdepartmental working group on this issue of authenticated content and what we might do with the platforms on labeling and education for people to understand AI content. So those risks are real. But as the Secretary said earlier, we have a lot of opportunity in the communication space to use AI. And it's not just that our media monitoring platform saves a lot of hours, potentially 180,000 hours next year in the PD family alone, which is an enormous amount of hours. But it also makes us better communicators to understand what people are saying out there in different languages, to then be able to communicate with them in different languages. And so we see not just an efficacy opportunity, but a strategic opportunity as well. One other sort of risk reward that we've thought a lot about in the PD family as public affairs officers is what is our imperative to be credible and authentic in our public communications. And we know that there are some specific risks tied to, for example, writing your ambassador's remarks in the field with ChatGPT. And if there's a mistake, then what are we supposed to say about whether or not humans or machines are behind what our leaders are saying and still have credibility with audiences? But I subscribe to the idea that if we're not using AI, we're being left behind. So I have sort of taken on what I've heard others say is kind of a 20-60-20 split of any given task. And I think this example of remarks for any leadership is a good example. You have to be able to invest in your human side up front to put in a really good prompt and have a really good expectation of what you want ChatGPT to do for you. If ChatGPT can do the middle 60% of a task, and then a human comes back and reviews it on the last 20%, I feel good about that, right? We always have to be making sure that we have human checks, particularly when it comes to public communications, and so we've thought a lot about that.
That's great. Undersecretary Zaya, you were our first champion in MSS to really embrace AI, and we are incredibly grateful. So now that you've seen it and you've deployed it across and you've applied it to your sensitive reports, what's the advantage? What are you seeing, and what would you advise the rest of us on these?
Well, thank you, Danny. And it's been a team effort. As the Secretary said, diplomacy is a team sport. Transformative change is a team sport. And I'm really proud that J Family has been able to collaborate with MSS, with Center for Analytics, with the CIO and her incredibly talented team to really unveil in the last year a series of innovations, AI-driven, that are going to make it easier to carry out some of our most important work. We have 3 flagship congressional reports that are the most widely read documents produced by this department. 2 of them were rolled out this week by the Secretary, the International Religious Freedom Reports and the Annual Trafficking in Persons Reports. These reports are critically important, but they are a tremendous drain on the time of our hardworking cadre, particularly our entry-level officers at every one of our embassies in the field who are supported by locally employed staff members who make up the backbone of this work. Now, we've estimated that these reports take about 150,000 hours a year to produce, and we took it upon ourselves with the Secretary's modernization agenda to launch a modernization effort for these reports where we could really leverage the benefits that AI brings to the table. We started an international focus group with hundreds of employees taking part. We heard a clear demand signal for help, an SOS for help managing the information overload that it takes to produce these incredibly important reports. One Post told us, I won't reveal their names, that every year their process was collecting newspaper clippings on the issues in questions, trafficking in persons, human rights violations. They would assemble these clippings in a manila envelope, and when it came time to do the reports, they would put it on the table and try to make sense of this. I'm happy to declare to everyone the age of the manila envelope has ended. Last February, with the help of CFA, MSS, and CIO, we launched an AI research assistant called the DCT, the Data Collection Management Tool, that we estimate will reduce by 1/3 the 52,000 hours a year our colleagues have spent researching and fact-checking these critically important reports. This is just the tip of the iceberg, because with the DCT, there is an AI language translation tool that translates 90 languages into English, as the secretary pointed out, in a matter of a second, work that could have taken hours, if not weeks, to produce. We're really excited that the first year of JMOD, or reports reform, is going to deliver over 30,000 hours of officer time saved, which will free up, again, our colleagues' time to get from behind their screens into the arena to help move the needle on some of our most pressing human rights, human trafficking, religious freedom concerns around the world. I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and I think this is an example of technology supporting, not supplanting, our work.
That's great. And the amount of time and money that your team and MSS and DT has spent on this, like, I would encourage everyone, the DCT is available for these specific reports, but push your teams to apply this to all the congressional reports. I mean, it's an incredible tool that needs to be applied for all of our congressional reports, and that's work on us to do that. So hold us accountable, please. Ambassador Garcetti, you lead one of the largest missions abroad, kind of akin to being a mayor of a city almost, right? How are you and your team using AI to advance the bilateral relationship?
So thank you, Danny. It's great to be up here with friends and friends out here as well. And if I can just go back, this is definitely not a trend. This is not bagels or boba. You know, I just found out how much sugar is in boba, and I love boba, and I'm gonna have to stop boba. But this is like we're building a cathedral, and we're the workers. We can be the architects. We're definitely going to be the parishioners, and maybe even a few of us will be the priests. So, you know, when you look at what we are doing here, this is a really exciting moment of something that will absolutely, already is life. I mean, if you look at the speed of adoption, I think I was looking at the stats, it was ChatGPT, 1 million users in 5 days, 100 million in 2 months. It took the internet 6 years to get there. So there's a lot of human beings already in this, and you're not going to be good at your job, and you're not going to be good at your work if this isn't a core skill. Not something like, oh, an add-on. Like, it's a core skill. So in India, we're approaching it that way, that this is something that can help our practice as individuals, as diplomats, and also help our purpose in terms of accelerating the outcomes and the work that we do. We kind of do it in 3 areas. I would say our procedures internally, our policies and the policy work we do bilaterally, multilaterally. And by the way, policy, there's 2 aspects of policy. There's kind of diplomacy in AI, and then there's AI in diplomacy. And you have to know that distinction, because we're all going to be called on to know AI as a policy area too. Because in India, you know, I was with Central Asian ambassadors in my bureau, and they were saying everybody wants to have their own national generative AI system, and you're going to have to actually speak this language and know what that even means, talk to them, help steer them. It's in our national security interests, their national security interests, our diplomacy. So on procedures, we use this in the ways that have already been highlighted. We use North Star. It's awesome. Our PD folks, you know, India, 90 languages just in India. So, you know, we use it already to make sure we have translations, and it's not a third the time freed up. It's about 80 to 90% of the time of our PD officers, especially our locally employed staff, who now thought they were going to be out of a job and now have completely different jobs. And in a budget-constrained environment, it's like getting double the staff overnight. It really is, because now they are working relationships. They're shaping stories. They're building kind of content ourselves that is changing how effective we are in PD. We're doing it for our own health. Some of you should come to Delhi. It's the most exciting place to be, but we have some air quality challenges. So we have sensors that we put out. We're data collectors, because AI, we have to also think we're not just passive recipients and users of AI. We have to be contributors too. Diplomacy actually has a really great history with an AI. You know, there's two models for translating. I don't know if any of you remember 20 years ago when you went to some of those early language translators, and they were just terrible because they worked off of algorithms that said, if this in English, then that in other languages. And it never really felt human. And you know what the source of data was that Google Translate kind of became human? It was the UN's translation data from the last 70 years was dumped into Google Translate, and it was diplomats' language that actually allowed Google Translate to now feel human and be very accurate. The other school of thought, like, don't ask why human beings do what we do, just get the data in there, and we can get AI that is more human, rather than trying to understand our heads and our minds and program that in. You know, I think we can code compassion. We can actually use AI for things like empathy, for the mental health and well-being, for the lung health of my employees, so that we now have predictive technology about what days you shouldn't exercise outside in Delhi because the air quality is going to be bad. And then in the third area, in policy, we're using it in really innovative ways. For instance, we're using AI funding through USAID and other things, innovative AI folks in India that are taking things like our phones and allowing us to have Indians cough into their phones in remote rural areas and get the first diagnosis of whether they have tuberculosis, when a quarter of the world's TB, and that affects us here, is in India. And we're going to use AI to do things like, we already are reading papers in all of those languages to see early symptoms of hemorrhagic fever that might be the next big outbreak that the human eye wouldn't detect, but AI will. And now we want to apply that to human rights, because the programming's there. Why can't we read papers where in India it's very coded, like whether there's communal violence or not? We can't always catch it. We find 34 incidents, and that becomes the congressional report, when if you've been to India, anything shorter than 34,000 incidents is probably not even close to accurate. So we're doing it in those people ways, those policies, those procedures, and then in helping each one of us be better employees, healthier employees, and a fitter mission.
That's really exciting, because we end up focusing a lot on time saving and how generative AI will save time, and it is so exciting to hear, as Matthew said, the most exciting innovation is done in the field. So that's really exciting to hear, like we're moving the needle. Dr. Fletcher, I feel Assistant Secretary Smith on my right shoulder here, and so I have to ask you a question about cybersecurity and the cybersecurity implications of AI. Like, how do we lean forward, experiment as the Secretary is kind of empowering us to do, and yet make sure that we protect our systems and our information?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I'm happy that you shouted out to DS, because DT is absolutely working this with DS. So for our big enterprise tools, honestly, we do all the smart cybersecurity things we do for all of our enterprise tools, which is we have very nerdy people, to steal a word from Matthew, who red team the thing. They try to break it. They try to break in from inside the State Department. They pretend that they live outside the State Department, and they try to break in. And we do that with almost all of our platforms and systems. In the case of the newest AI technology, as we were, sort of testing it, we did this and we found some stuff, honestly. These folks managed to do some really cool, sneaky things, and they were able to see what some folks' prompts were. They were able to see information they shouldn't have been able to see. And we fixed it. So we identified some problems and we fixed them. The other thing we do, and we do this with all of our systems, is we have to have visibility. So we have to be able to see who is doing what inside that system. And for AI in particular, we've provided a lot of training. And in fact, training is mandatory to use the chatbot. And so, we can see what prompts people are using, not just to inform how is this technology being used and how is innovation happening in the field, but also we can see if somebody's up to no good, whether they're a person who works at the State Department or somebody who's managed to get in and is pretending to be a person who works at the State Department. So visibility and testing, and we're doing this in partnership with DS.
Thanks, that's great. So for the teams that are lucky enough to work under you guys, there's this top cover for using AI and being experimental. Undersecretary Zaya, you've had a long career at the State Department. What would you advise on, how do you address the people that are resistant, skeptical about using AI, about adopting new ideas and new technology, new ways of doing things?
Well, I would quote our boss on this: just get started. And I think the launch of the new AI.state portal is just an opening for all of you in our audience, including our virtual audience from all over the world. Things like DCT, this AI research assistant, it is the first generative AI SBU information tool, incredibly developed, pressure tested by Kelly's team, Matthew, and others. And this really opens a new dimension, really, in our ability to real-time share information between the field and Washington. It's an incredibly involved process between posts and the field to finalize the text of these reports. I'm excited to see what we're going to do this year, but I want to be clear, this has application for all of you. Everything we do takes a team. It allows us to curate data sets and to be able to analyze and to synthesize them in ways that were simply unthinkable even 5 years ago. The translation piece of this, the 90 languages, any of you all can use that now. So I really commend to you to take this on, take advantage of all the hard work that's gone into this, and see how it can transform your own work.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I think, again, hopefully everybody hears you have these senior leaders at the department that are saying, go for it, do it. So if you meet any resistance with your own supervisors, you know who to contact. You have top cover. Undersecretary Allen, since you've arrived here, I think you've convinced everybody that we're all PD officers. We're on board. We believe it. So could you talk a little bit more about the PD tools? So even outside of PD, what should all of us be doing when we're going home to our families during Thanksgiving, other times? Like, what should we be using your tools for advancing our mission?
Oh, thanks for this question. Yeah, look, we all know that being literate in strategic communications and understanding how narratives shape our policy space is fundamental to all of our jobs. And so to the extent that it's everyone's responsibility to be able to carry messages from the department, to try to recruit into the department, to try to talk about your personal experience, to make foreign policy a little bit less foreign, particularly to your American friends and family, that's something we can all do. And those of us in the R family want to be partners to everyone across the department. And along these lines, I'm so pleased that one of the outcomes of the AI for PD campaign last year was a resources hub for everyone in the department. So for people to take away today, when you go to the new site, part of the site is going to be what's called the AI for PD Resources Hub. We started the AI for PD campaign thinking that we would more narrowly focus on two lines of effort, translations and media monitoring. And what we quickly found out, particularly from talking to our field where the best innovation and experimentation was happening, was that people across the whole department, not just PD sections, were craving permission to use certain platforms or had questions about what they're allowed to do, whether or not, it's for their jobs, for their outreach, for their time back home. And so we now have an AI for PD resources hub for all of you that, for example, has videos on how do I start a ChatGPT account? What are examples of good prompts and bad prompts to get the types of outcomes I want on, for example, a set of remarks or building blocks? How do I think about procurement of AI services? What are approved AI platforms, right? We realized that we didn't need to build everything from the ground up. And this is where I give a lot of credit to MSS and to CIO's office, because they know that part of our value here is working together and giving our workforce a sense of what's a sanctioned platform? How can I experiment? What lines can I experiment within? And so this AI for PD Resources Hub will help all of you do that with videos, tutorials, prompts, procurement guidance, and platform approvals. So go use it.
It is great. And if, for those of you who haven't seen it, I will just warn you, because I've spent the last couple of days looking at this, where you end up on the phone looking at this, and all of a sudden it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and you've hit only like a percentage of it. So it's the latest. You can get sucked down a rabbit hole of all the resources and all the tools. So thank you guys all for pulling those up there. Ambassador Garcetti, what else should the department be doing to set up the environment for posts to be embracing AI? And specifically, like, all the AI rests on data. And so for creating the environment to request for data, to ask for data, to use data, what else should we be doing?
It's a great question, and I've been here most of the month in DC working. I came here for the conference, Chief of Mission conference, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And I leave here very inspired by my colleagues and wondering why I've been in a vacuum for so long with AI. So I think it's time to network our own internal AI work, like seeing what Guinea is doing, seeing what the mission is doing in Honduras, building their own portal on AI. was incredibly inspiring. I'm going back and kind of rethinking what I'm going to ask of my people. And to those of you who are scared about this, and then, this is the second largest mission in the world now after Mexico. I have 2,500 people, Indian and American, who are in, really, if you count our 2 Commerce Department posts, 8 posts around this huge country. I want them to start socializing this with each other and feeling that they're all great technologists, because all of you are. Whoever feels like you're the worst technologist in this room, you're a great technologist. And except for the interns that might be in here, all of you have survived that moment when this thing called the internet came. And everybody was saying the exact same thing, like, I don't understand not having books and snail mail and like landlines, and like, you actually did it. What's a smartphone? A smartphone was so scary. Like, where are the buttons? Where are the buttons? Where are the buttons? And now, like, buttons bug us. You will make this transition. You can do this. And so part of it is like, start reading books, start reading The Most Human, which is a great place to start on AI. Just kind of an understanding. Chip war, like if you're going to be in semiconductor policy, like these are mandatory diplomatic books you should be reading. Have a book club. Get together and geek out together. I'm going to give space to some of my folks to once a week have a couple hours for those who are interested and make sure every section and department is represented to start looking at that. And then we will look back at state and across other missions of what can we be giving you? Because if you think about what that repository from the UN just of languages was, imagine all of our cables, which is I know what you're building, together. It is human knowledge of diplomatic history. And there's things in that is more than information. It's insight. It is understanding. Go back to the cathedral metaphor, it's like the new column or arch that's never been done before. If we just look back at what we've already built before, we will see it. And I think the biggest thing we all have to get ready for is changing how we work and we think. AI, in helping us work and think better, is going to force us to put a mirror to ourselves. When I was mayor, I remember, and I think the higher you get up in the State Department, the same thing, you can spend 80, 90% of your time just getting informed by everybody. You need to know this, read this report, this email, sit down, get briefed. And I remember as mayor, I finally had to stop one day. I never got to the ideal, but I said, I want a quarter of my time to be informed. But I want a quarter of my time to be managed, a quarter of my time to maintain relationships, and a quarter of my time to kind of rethink and recharge. And if AI gives us the space to do that, it's going to feel scary because we're not going to feel like we're working a normal day. My normal day now, I read John Kenneth Galbraith's Notes from an Ambassador. It's when he was ambassador to the great economist in India. And it's an amazing read, and I'm like, I want to do that. And then I'm like, but I got an inbox. Like, I don't have time to write even 2 minutes of reflections at the end of the day because that's what we think work is. Let's get rid of that BS part of our work and get back to being diplomats and thinkers, innovators and builders, architects and peacemakers. And then I think we'll understand how AI is transforming us to not just look outward, but really transform inward.
That's great. I feel like this has been not just a masterclass on AI, but also on leadership. So thank you all for this a ton. And more importantly, thank you for setting the foundation to fundamentally transform the department and the practice of diplomacy. It's amazing. Thank you. You guys are stuck with me for a little longer. We're going to transition into to recognizing the recipients of the 2024 Data and AI for Diplomacy Awards. It was really inspiring to read these submissions. It's really incredible from around the world, the individuals and teams who have leveraged data and artificial intelligence to advance our diplomatic missions and advance our effectiveness in our operations. So I want to congratulate all the nominees, and I'd like to welcome to the stage Assistant Secretary Elena Teplitz, our Acting Undersecretary for Management, to present these awards. And as we get ready, please, come on up. Thanks. As we get all set up and ready for this, can we also recognize all of my colleagues in MSS and our partners in the Secretary's office and everyone who helped put on this event? I'm going to take the privilege of having the mic and actually asking, can everyone who had a hand in putting on this event just stand for a second? Our AV technicians, everyone who's in the room who's actually helped put on this event. which is an incredible, incredible feat. Okay, for each award, I'm going to read the names and the citations, and please come up to the up here to the stage and get your picture. Okay, so for our Data Champion Award, we have Gregory Church from GTM, who's not here, but there's going to be someone who's going to come up as I read the citation and accept the award. So for improving the quality, timeliness, and accessibility of workforce data and analytics used by senior leaders across the department, Greg developed an innovative data visualization tool that clearly presents critical information to enable more strategic workforce planning. His efforts have resulted in increased data literacy and operational efficiencies and a cultural shift where leaders now embrace data as a strategic asset, empowering them to make informed human resource decisions that drive success. Okay. Our Group Data Award is from ISN. We have Roseanne Larson, Simon Nash, Haley Robbins, Nina Palmer, Jocelyn Kellen, and Audrey Fitz. Come on up. For leveraging data as a strategic asset in safeguarding national security, this team developed a groundbreaking semiconductor data analytics platform that is crucial in protecting critical technologies and advancing U.S. interests in an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. For the Data Individual Award, we have Mark Buttweiler from Consular. For using data analytics to improve workforce productivity, advance fraud protection strategies, and improve data literacy in consular affairs and the department more broadly. Mark leveraged analytical tools to help streamline case processing and case management decisions, resulting in improved operational efficiencies. For the Post Award, we have Mission Germany. That's Daniel Combs, Daniel Varvel, and William Nelson. For developing innovative new data tools, providing hands-on training to hundreds of department employees, and lowering the barrier to data accessibility on pressing policy issues. The team leveraged consular data to visualize and analyze millions of data points to answer priority administration policy questions. The AI Group Award goes to the Conakry Public Diplomacy section. Alexander Hunt, Ekwo Edzi, Benjamin Troop, Usman Berry, Suzanne Leno, Saleh Nabe, Animata Keiti, Ketu Torre, Andre Gobni, Salimatu Berry, Ezekiel Leno, Mary Mediel Tapefel. And our final AI Individual Award goes to Jillian Mamino from OES. So for advancing U.S. foreign policy objectives and national security goals by promoting best practices for the safe and responsible development and adoption of AI globally. So that was a round of applause for all of our winners, but I also want to recognize the bureaus, the missions, the supervisors that allowed and encouraged the space to innovate and even to nominate folks. And I look forward to reading more of these submissions next year. So another round of applause as Assistant Secretary Teplitz comes to the stage.
So I have the pleasure of wrapping up this great event. So thank you, Director Stoyan, and huge congratulations again to our award recipients. Hearing about what our award recipients, our award winners have done this year is really inspiring. I hope it has excited you and given you ideas. The innovation and curiosity exhibited by our colleagues is really helping drive U.S. diplomacy forward. The department has made incredible progress over the past few years to build our technological capacity so we could be ready for emerging technology like AI. As this event has highlighted, the department is leading the federal government when it comes to adopting AI and other new technologies. This is not space that we should cede. We need to continue to be on the cutting edge. I think one of the biggest things I've learned from working for Secretary Blinken is that modernization is firstly a mindset. Shifting how we approach processes, how we question the status quo, and how we adapt to a rapidly changing world. This can lead to rapid and meaningful transformation, and we are seeing it right here. We're working in more places, working on more issues with more problem sets than ever before. I think the Secretary defined this for us. And it means we need help. We have to embrace responsibly technologies that will enable our talented workforce to focus on the high-impact diplomatic work that our country and our allies depend on every day. And as you've heard today, we are already incorporating AI into our missions to modernize diplomacy and better serve the American people. We are committed to equipping our people with the tools and the resources needed to confront a challenging world beset by information overload. We have to continue to build advanced data analytics and AI that offer the potential to vastly reduce burdensome manual work so we can allow our team to add greater value and to continue to do this in a way that is safe and secure. We can't do more with less. We have to be smarter. We have to be better enabled to get our work done at the pace and with the strategic insight our national security demands. And hearing about all the incredible, innovative initiatives from our leadership panel, our award winners, and Secretary Blinken himself, I cannot tell you how proud I am of the department and of all of you. The passion you bring to the mission, the deep knowledge and care with which you approach problems, and the incredible skills that you use in service to our country are inspiring. We're innovating for today, but also for the diplomacy of tomorrow. This is a great legacy to create. So I want to say thank you to Secretary Blinken for his participation, Undersecretary Allen, Undersecretary Zaya, CIO Fletcher, Ambassador Garcetti, Director Stoyan, and CDAO Graviss for your participation today, and for all of you who joined us here in the auditorium and those who joined us virtually. Thank you to our colleagues from the Hill and for the media, who are also critical partners in our AI journey. Thank you for joining us as we commemorate our accomplishments to date. And of course, we look forward to all that we can do together for the accomplishments of tomorrow. So remember to visit the website, ai.state.gov, for states and tools to keep the momentum going forward. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your Friday.